So we've entered into tax layer and we want to enter now a capital gains and losses transaction. And we'll also do while we're here, I'll show loss carry forward just to show you where you put the information in for that. So client search, we're going to pick on the Smiths again. And because I know the Smiths are first in my selection, I picked Mary Smith, who's the taxpayer. The return opens up. I'll wait for it to finish here. We know this is income. So we're going to go to the federal section and income opens up. Here are the types of income. We put in W-2 information last week. Today we're going to put in Schedule D Form 8949 transactions. So I can click on the row, I can click on edit. I'll just click on edit while I'm here, and up opens this menu. On this menu, capital gains and loss items is right at the top. I want to enter transaction. We've received the 1099-B from the Smiths. On there it says that they jointly own we'll call it stocks. Let's say they sold 10 different stocks during 2021, and they were all short term. They didn't hold them for at least a year and a day. Joint return would be both. Description of property, we would just say it's stocks. I already had that in a drop-down menu. Date acquired, we could put a day in if we wanted to do that for all 10. We'd put in 10 different transactions. But in order to avoid that and save ourselves time, we would just say it's an alternate option. Now we know in this case it's various short term. So we'd select various short term. Date sold. Well, the date sold, if there were 10 different transactions for 10 different stocks, if they were on 10 different days, we could go in and we could put in one day that one of them sold. We could put in as an alternative the last day of the year, 12/31. I'm going to say that one of them sold on the 7th of July. I sold one of them, or they sold one of them on the 7th of July of 2021. Sales price. We're going to use an easy figure here. We're going to call it $30,000. What's the basis, the cost basis type? On the 1099-B, we're going to say that these transactions, the selling of these 10 stocks, they were all cost basis reported to the IRS. That's what it says. What was the cost? So we're going to say that the original cost, let's say, was $20,000. Oops. $20,000. Now, adjustments. We know that up here we said various, so we know that we've combined multiple transactions, in this case the sale of 10 different stocks, into one row, if you will, that we're reporting. So we want to go here to M, where it says reporting multiple transactions in a single row, and check off that box. Now I could go here and say save and enter another, and I'm going to, or I could say continue. I'm going to say continue. Note what happens. There's no AGI over here right now. Nothing there. When I say continue, it now is going to subtract the differences between the sale amount and the purchase amount, which is $10,000, and shows me that the adjusted gross income is now $10,000. These are short term. Short term, this is not like long term where you pay 0, 15, or 20%. In this case, these are all dollars that are going to be taxed at whatever just thrown on top of whatever other income well, it's the taxpayers that they had. So now we're going to add another one, and we can go up here to add another capital gains transaction. In this case, it's still both. Let's say it's mutual funds. And we're going to do the same thing. We'll say that we're going to use the alternate option. We're going to say it's various. Let's say that this was long term now. Date sold. We could go in and we could put in specific day or days. I'm going to put in 12/31 just as a date. Enter in. Sales price. Let's suppose they sold for 20,000 and the cost basis type was not reported to the IRS. We'll choose that. And for cost, we'll say it was, how about we lost money? We'll say it was $22,000. Again, we had various up here for dates acquired. That means that we've combined multiple transactions into a single row, if you will. And so we'll come down to M and say reporting multiple transactions in a single row. I say continue. There are my two transactions I've entered. It's now reduced the AGI down to $8,000. It's taken out the loss that the Smiths had, or at least the maximum allowed loss that the Smiths had for the year. And that's it. That's how simple it is to input capital gains and losses. I'm going to show now loss carryover, just so you can see the input menu. You will. Over here, there's two different types. I didn't cover that, but you can have short-term carryover, loss carryover, and long-term loss carryover. The first type is short-term. It isn't Mary's, it was a Walter. Let's suppose they were both joint last year. So it's a both short-term carryover. Let's suppose that was $4,000. And here's long-term for Mary, long-term for Walter, and long-term for both. Let's say that was $2,000. We're going to see what happens to the AGI up here when we put in these loss carryovers. So these are being carried over from 2020 into 2021. I'm going to say continue to save. And my AGI, their AGI has now declined to $2,000. So it used carryover losses from 2020 to reduce the adjusted gross income. In other words, what they're going to be taxed on, it reduced it down. I believe it was 8,000 before we started. We put in 4,000 and 2,000. It subtracted down to $2,000. It took the 6,000 away. So that's just a very quick summary of how to input capital gains and loss items. Also, how to show and include capital loss carryover that can help reduce in a given tax year the amount of tax that someone would owe. That's the end of the demonstration.